Now, this question is violating a strategy that I have talked about in other videos. So first thing you might want to do on any transition question is kind of look at your answers, see what you're dealing with. Now, previously is kind of its own little transition, right? We know what that means. Previous means kind of before. So we know that this has to do with time. So if the passage is really about time, then great, this might be a possible answer. Regardless is kind of a version of but, so it's much more for contrasts. There is kind of weird. We'll deal with that if we need to. Sometimes those weird ones will show up and we're just like, all right, if everything else is wrong, we'll pick this. And then instead is also a contrast. That means but. So if you've heard me talk about the strategy for these transitions before, you've heard me say that if two words are the same, then if they fit the same category, then they're both wrong, right? So if we're following that strategy, it's very likely that both B and D are wrong. But let's take a look at the sentence. In the search for extraterrestrial life, astrobiologists Stuart Bartlett and Michael L. Wong proposed that scientists avoid using the term life. Blank, researchers should use another word, life. Well, it's spelled differently. This new term, they argue, could be used to draw distinctions between the known characteristics of life on Earth and the potentially differing characteristics of life on other planets. So, wait a minute, what's going on here? They're saying, okay, these scientists propose that scientists avoid using the term life, but researchers should use another word, life, right? So it does seem like there's a bit of a contrast here. Now, we could look at the other words. Now, would it be previously? No, because there's no time issue. In fact, they use the word should, so it means maybe next or after this, they should use the word life, right? It's a new word, so previously doesn't make sense. They haven't made this recommendation yet, so this is definitely wrong. And then there, again, I really don't even know what this would mean here. There, there means there, like you're pointing, like you're indicating a location. There is no location here, so I genuinely don't know what this means. At which point we've eliminated all the answers, right? So something's wrong, meaning that initial strategy of crossing out the regardless and the instead was wrong. Maybe these words, even though normally they have the exact same basic definition, maybe they have enough of a difference here that one is right and the other is wrong. And this can happen. It's rare, so I don't want you distrusting the strategy. If we have these four categories of basic transition words, but is one of our categories. If you got two words that mean but, odds are very good that both are wrong. But occasionally, there are exceptions. The SAT is very good at kind of bending its own rules. So it's got to be one of these two, and that makes sense. We do feel like there is a bit of a contrast here. You should avoid using the term life, but instead, you should use this other word. And there we go. It's instead. That's going to be the one right answer. Now, why not regardless? Well, regardless is a bit of a dismissive word. It almost means like, hey, the thing I just said, ignore it. It doesn't matter. But that's not quite the meaning we're going for here. We're not trying to say that we should ignore the fact that scientists should avoid using this term life. It doesn't. We're saying it's important, right? It's still important that they avoid using that term and start using the new term. And the reason that's important is, basically we don't know what life is going to look like on other planets, so we should separate these two things and have different words for them. But that's tough. That's a tough thing because I don't know that many people understand that distinction between those two words. Maybe if you do, it is a much more intuitive thing than it is about definitions. So you can trust your instincts in that case. But I do think that if you started this off by crossing out those but words and said, no, the strategy says get rid of them, you would get to a point where you're like, yeah, but the other two don't make sense. And this is why I'm not worried about the exceptions to this strategy or any strategy, is usually when we hit an exception, a place where the SAT is defying our expectations, we kind of know. We're like, something's off, right? The normal things that I'm trying don't seem to be working. This doesn't seem like a good fit. So, don't worry about the exceptions. They're rare. The strategies will work 85, 90% of the time. And then when the 10% happens, you'll be ready. You'll just be like, yeah, something weird's going on. So hopefully that happened to you here. But I did think it was interesting that even in the easy module here, we have this weird thing where the strategy that normally works, that really helps us sort through these transition questions, they gave us an exception. So just be on the lookout. It can happen anywhere.